Brand new video today. We're doing 2 college football player props here on PrizePicks for Saturday, September 21st. Before we get started, you guys, link in the description below. Hop into the premium Discord, $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. So I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have other cappers in there as well. They post all of their plays. Super positive community in the Discord. Everyone in there really just trying to help each other cash. I also want to mention I'm not a gambling expert. This is not financial advice. It's simply just the plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully giving you guys some insight and analysis to then make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get right into it, you guys. 2 college football player props here. We have a massive college football Saturday slate here, Saturday, September 21st. Also, stay to the end of the video, you guys. Going to be talking about Daily Grand Fantasy research betting tool that I use every single day, you guys. It does all the hard work for you to give you the plays with the best odds to hit. Link in the description below. Using promo code TUFF gets you 25% off your first month using Daily Grand. But I will mention that later on in the video. 2 player props, college football, Saturday, September 21st. Let's get into it. So the first play I'm looking at is going to be Haynes King, quarterback at Georgia Tech. I like his over 19.5 fantasy score here against Louisville. Haynes King under 20 fantasy score to me is value really regardless of matchup. When we look at this matchup here, 56.5 over under, and Georgia Tech is actually going to be 10-point underdogs in this one, going on the road to play in Louisville. In Georgia Tech, they had that game against Florida State at the beginning of the year in Ireland, right? They won that game. And really since then, Haynes King has kind of really played well. I mean, this is actually their 4th game of the year. They played Florida State. They won that game. They played Georgia State, 26.7 fantasy. They lost to Syracuse, but Haynes King put up 33.3 fantasy in that one. And then they played Virginia Military Academy last week, which was a blowout. And he put up 23 fantasy points, only threw the ball 22 times, and actually literally had 0 rushing stats because he didn't need to really to run the ball. And it kind of goes to show you the upside that he does have because Haynes King is known as a dual threat quarterback, right? That's just kind of the player he is. We go back to last season. Haynes King was over this 19.5 fantasy score line in every game but 2 on the road at Miami and on the road at Clemson, which anyone could say those are tough matchups. Every single other game last season, he cleared this 19.5 fantasy score line, including against Louisville, week 1 of last year. 26.8 fantasy, 313 through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, along with 53 rushing yards as well. So he went over this line, and I don't know how many total weeks that is, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of 13 weeks last season. He went over this line. If we go to the year before that, obviously he had up and down year. I think that was when he was at Texas A&M, but nonetheless, the rushing upside, you can see the rushing stats for Haynes King, which is why I like this play. I think numerous games last season, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8 different games last season, he scored at least 1 rushing touchdown, which, again, if you can put a rushing touchdown in on this game, would just increase the odds of this hitting tremendously. And something interesting as well, like we've seen Louisville, they've only played 2 games, and they've allowed 15.4 fantasy points per game through those 2 games, right? But we look at those matchups, they've played Austin Peay and Jacksonville State, okay? So let's look at those 2 games. Again, this game against Austin Peay, 62-0. They really had nothing going offensively, I think, for like this to even matter, right? Like we'll just not even look at this game. But what's key here is Jacksonville State. They put up 14 points in a blowout at Louisville, but quarterback Tyler Huff, right? Don't even know who this is, no disrespect, but he put up 160 through the air, 1 passing touchdown, but he had 18 carries for 101 yards and a rushing touchdown, which shows me that Louisville defense can be vulnerable to a rushing quarterback. If we just saw, like I said, Tyler Huff, has nowhere near the supporting cast as Haynes King does, he put up 25.5 fantasy points against Louisville, which, again, Tyler Huff at Jacksonville State is not the same player as Haynes King. We know this, and we just saw literally him put up 25.5 against Louisville. So, in my opinion, it's a smash spot for Haynes King. I think too low. I would pay this up to 20.5 if it does bump, but at 19.5, I think is an elite value. The second play that I'm looking at here is we're gonna go back to Shedeur, and I know I've taken Shedeur. This is like the 3rd week in a row, maybe the 4th week in a row I've played Shedeur, but he's hit every time except for 1 for us. Like he has actually hit every single time. So this is the 4th time he's 2 of 3 right now going into this last spot. But over 20.5 fantasy scores to play. Playing at home versus Baylor, 2-point spread, 50.5 over under. So expecting a close game here for Shedeur Sanders. And if we just take a look at a few things, right? He's over in 2 of 3 games this season, 34.5 at home versus North Dakota State, and then last week on the road at Colorado State, 28.1. But we go back to last season and we look at how Shedeur played at home, right? I mean, 5 of his highest scoring fantasy score games were at home. So, and he really went over this line, I think, 4 or 5 of 6 games he went over this line at home. So we know how much better he plays at home. We know the hit rate that Shedeur Sanders essentially has at home. So when you combine that with the matchup versus Baylor, which if you go back to last season, Baylor had the worst defense in the Big 12 and allowed 33.3 points per game. So we're talking, I mean, that we're not far removed from last season. And Shedeur currently to go over 1.5 passing touchdowns, minus 270 on FanDuel, which if we go back to even last season in games where he threw at least 2 passing touchdowns, we can see the floor for this line. Over in 6 of 7 games when he throws 2 passing touchdowns last season, over in obviously 6 of 7 games as well when he's at home with 2 passing touchdowns, but pretty much a lock to throw 2 passing touchdowns in this one. And then again, like I said, Baylor's pass defense last season, skeptical. This season, they've played, the really only significant proponent they've played this year is Utah. And we saw Cam Rising go 8 for 14, 92 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns before getting hurt, had a 159 passer rating. Just was absolutely dominating, and then he got hurt, and then Utah just ran the ball the rest of the game. But he was, 8 for 14, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think this was like literally on 2 drives. They were able to punch it in easily. So, again, anytime Shedeur is under 22.5, I think it's value, and at 20.5 at home versus Baylor, I think it's a great spot as well. So, 2 plays for this video: Haynes King over 19.5 fantasy, Shedeur over 20.5 fantasy. Again, I want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy here. Research betting tool that I use every day. There is a link, promo code TUFF in the description below. But they basically do all the hard work for you. Like, for example, FanDuel, Caesars, Bovada, they don't have sportsbook fantasy score lines. So what Daily Grind does is they take these the lines that are on these sports books and give you what their fantasy score would be on this sports book. So on FanDuel, Deion Burks would be at 13.6. On PrizePicks, he's currently at 15.5, which means he's giving it 54.18 percent odds to hit. Right? If you're on underdog, parlay, play better, boom, fantasy, sleeper, doesn't matter the book that you're on or DFS platform that you're on. Daily Grind got it. They got the data for you guys. So again, link in the description. Promo code TUFF, 25% off your first month. This is a tool, you guys, that I use every day. But again, going back to the YouTube plays, Haynes King 19.5 fantasy, Shedeur Sanders 20.5. Both overs. Please drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.